Hello there and welcome back to my channel. So today, as I have previously kind of hinted, well not hinted, I've said, like I've actually explicitly said that I'm going to be doing this, but I'm going to be starting off my decluttering series of videos. I'm going to be starting off with decluttering my eyeshadow palettes, and then I'm going to I'm going to have about probably 10 videos on just decluttering eyeshadow palettes, but I'm going to be decluttering my highlighters, my lipsticks, my blushes, etc, etc and etc. What I'm trying to say is there's going to be a lot of videos coming up of me getting rid of some shit that I definitely don't use and do not need anymore. So just to give you a little bit of like a background on why I've come to this point in my life where I just want to get rid of makeup. Like previous to this point, I was all about buying the makeup. Let's just have loads of makeup just so it can go dusty and it can sit on my shelf and I'll just never use it. I just have way too much makeup basically. I look at the makeup and I do feel quite guilty about the amount of money that I've kind of wasted on it, because although I've enjoyed a lot of it, and you know, even just like filming a video with an eyeshadow palette, that's worth a lot to me. Like I really enjoy reviewing an eyeshadow palette, but say for example I bought an eyeshadow palette, I've reviewed it, it was shit. Like I've never used that eyeshadow palette ever again, and it's not, to me, I don't actually view that as being like a waste of money because I've just enjoyed doing the review. I've just ended up with a lot of this kind of surplus makeup that I don't use, and I can't help but feel that someone else would love that makeup and someone else could actually really appreciate that makeup. So the plan of action with this makeup that I am not going to be keeping is that I'm going to be donating it to, there's a kind of charity nearby, and they take in old clothes, shoes, toys, but they also have started to take in makeup. You obviously do have to, you know, kind of give them stuff that is usable. Like you couldn't just like give them like a palette that you'd almost hit pan on every single shade. It has to be barely used, which a lot of the makeup I give away will be. So they'll basically either sell it and they'll use the profit to help disadvantaged women and children, or they will pass it on to disadvantaged women, or men it should be actually, because why should it just be women? Men like makeup too. But they will make sure that it goes to a really good home where it will get so appreciated. Look, it's like I'm talking about an animal or something. So this is like my bag with all the palettes. I have a complete mix here. I've got higher end makeup, like well-known makeup. I've got Aliexpress makeup, completely like unknown branded makeup. Like I've got a whole mix of everything, and it's in no particular order. It was just me grabbing a load of stuff and then throwing it in the bag for today. So without further ado, let's get decluttering. I feel like I need to have some cheerleaders in the back going, yeah, declutter. D-E-C-L-U-T-T-E. Ah! I don't have any cheerleaders. I've got bunnies, but they fecked off. They're probably pooping over in the toy box or something, which they love to do. They don't poop in the 2 litter box I provided them. Oh no, they poop in the toy box or on me. So anyway, okay, so the first palette that we've got today is by Urban Decay. This is the Naked, is it? Oh no, it's not. It's the Ultimate Basics palette. So this was actually my favourite palette for a long time. I absolutely love this. It is kind of what it says on the tin. It is quite basic, but you do have every single kind of everyday shade that you would want. This was just like my go-to palette for when I was going into the office back in the days where we actually ventured out to the office. It's really, really easy to use. I would just always get a really nice look from the palette. I also did enjoy the fact that this palette is an all matte palette. There's no metallics or glitters in this palette, and I kind of like that because it kind of steers you in the right direction for you know, going to the office. It's not like a party palette. You can't get, you know, distracted by some glitter and pop it on, and then the next thing you know, it's 11 a.m. You're in the service charge budget meeting, looking like, you know, you got lost on your way to a rave. So I kind of like that the palette is quite uniform. It's kind of well ordered. You've got a mix of cool tones. You've only got one warm tone actually, which is this kind of burnt orangey shade. The rest are beautiful cool tones. I really, really love this palette. It's definitely not blending out as easily as it once did, and it does have the tendency to look a little bit patchy now on the lids. Either the palette has just gone bad over time, or my makeup skills have deteriorated. It's one of the two, but I would definitely much prefer to think that the product's gone bad, you know, over time. With all of that being said, I am definitely going to be holding on to this palette. I bet you were thinking, oh, she's definitely getting rid of this fucking palette. No, I'm keeping hold of it for old time's sake. This literally was my favourite palette, and I just want to cling on to it. I'm not ready to let go yet. She is staying, so I'm going to have like a staying pile and a fecking off to greener pastures pile. Should I come a bit closer? Because I've just realised, am I so far? I'm too far away. You know, I felt the need to be like, oh, I'll be at the other end of the room hosting the video today. But okay, right, I've only done one palette and we're about 8 minutes in, so I need to get my skates on. Okay, guys, this next palette, controversial. So this is by the not very well liked Jeffree Star, and it's the Thirsty palette. So this for me is the epitome of a summery, let's go on a holiday kind of palette. And when I went to Italy last year, this was the palette, the only palette I took with me. It's just perfect. You've got the beautiful metallics, and you've got like all different like formulas. So this whole row here are the metallics, but like for example the silver one is much smoother than say this kind of bronzy one, which is quite textured, and it's very glittery. And then you've just got like loads of different, like they're not all the same formulas, what I'm trying to say, but I think that the metallics are absolutely stunningly beautiful. I also really like the mattes. I know that Jeffree Star is super hated by everyone, and I made the decision a while ago that I would not be purchasing any more of his makeup because I just think he is a bit too controversial. And you know, I like to lead a very quiet, you know, relaxed, drama-free life, and I just know that if I were to post a review of Jeffree Star, there were going to be arguments in the comment section, and yeah, I don't really need that in my life. So I don't purchase any Jeffree Star makeup anymore. Like I try not to judge people. So for me, I mean, I don't really like Jeffree Star. I can imagine that he would be like a super bitchy friend to have. Like you would think he really likes you, and to your face he'd be like really overly complimentary and like nice, but secretly like you would know that he's bitching about you behind your back. That's the kind of person I think he is, but I don't like to judge because I don't know him. But anyway, yeah, I actually really do like this palette. I just think the formula of Jeffree Star's mattes, it's really good quality. So I am going to be keeping hold of this palette for the day when maybe we'll go abroad again and get to go on holiday, or maybe just the day when the sun decides to show its face here in Manchester. I just love this palette. I just think metallics are something special. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping this palette, but oh my gosh, like I don't think I could even give her away to anyone. I don't think I could pay anyone to take this palette because look how dirty she is. I mean, what have I actually been doing with this poor palette? But anyway, she's in the stay pile. We're not doing well so far, are we guys? No. Guys, next we have the Pat McGrath palette. This is the most expensive palette that I own, and she is called the Mothership Mega Celestial Definity. eyeshadow palette. This is what she looks like. She's very fancy. She's very kind of like bougie with a little bougie strap things at the side. So I basically bought this in a flash sale. She originally was about £100 and I got it for £70 and I was thinking, oh my gosh, such a bargain. Like, how could I not buy her? But I'd obviously heard all of this like extravagant hype about how good Pat McGrath makeup was. And you know what? You know, whenever you see something in a sale and all of a sudden it looks like really attractive, whereas if it was not in a sale, you probably wouldn't even look twice at it. That was like the situation with this palette. I can admit that I bought it just because it was Pat McGrath and it was in the sale. I mean, the colours, they're nice, but it was literally just the fact that it was Pat McGrath. And I was like, oh my gosh, £30 off, let's do it. It sounds like a great time. But in all honesty, like, this palette was so disappointing. I didn't really like the shimmers. I found them difficult to use. They definitely are not as easy to use as the shimmers in my smaller Pat McGrath palette, which we will be coming to a little bit later. So the shimmers, very disappointing. The mattes, even more disappointing. So I found that the mattes were just quite patchy, not particularly easy to blend. I definitely was not impressed with this palette. I am going to be giving this away, but I'm actually going to be giving it to my stepdaughter. I only hesitated saying stepdaughter because I've never really referred to my stepdaughter as stepdaughter. I always refer to her as usually my boyfriend's daughter, but now we're married. And I've not really spoken to that many people since we got married because it's been lockdown. So my husband's daughter, I just feel it's wrong. Like, I'm not her stepmom. I'm not her mum. Like, she's got a mum. I don't want to take that place. So anyway, gosh, this video is a declutter about palettes and we're not about how you like to refer to people in your life. But yeah, I'm going to be giving this palette away to her because she is a huge makeup lover and I just know that she would probably think the same way as me about this. She would love it. Like, she'd be like, oh, Pat McGrath. As soon as she used it, she'd probably be like really disappointed. So kind of feel a bit bad giving her something that she's going to end up ultimately being disappointed in. But at least she'll get to try it. She can pass it to one of her friends who also will be very excited when they get it. But then once they try it, they're going to be so disappointed. And then the cycle will continue. You know what I mean? What's it called? The pay it forward thing with kindness. This is like the pay it forward with you will be disappointed. Like, you're going to be disappointed, which not so positive, but oh well. I mean, oh well. Okay, so next we have another Pat McGrath palette. This is a much smaller one and it's called the Eye Ecstasy Sublime palette. It features 3 different metallics, and this is the first ever palette that I got from Pat McGrath, and it filled me with a false sense of security that Pat McGrath products were something super special and exceptional. I absolutely love this palette. This definitely did meet my expectations. The metallics are so smooth, so glowy. I've actually got this kind of limey greeny one on today, and that's literally all I have on my lid. It's so easy to use. Like, this has actually become my new everyday. Like, if I need to create a look within a matter of seconds, I use this because I don't need to use a brush. I can just use my finger and then the look complete. So I love this palette. I'm not going to be giving this away. You'll have to rip it out of my cold dead hands. So this one is staying. Oh my gosh, I've not got any in the giving away pile. I feel so uncharitable right now, but let's move on. Okay, so I'm gonna actually be strategic here. I'm going to pick a palette I know I'm getting rid of, and I've got it. Okay, so guys, next we have the Feather Kingdom palette by the Boudoir brand. So this was purchased from Aliexpress for probably like £2 a while ago. This is what she looks like. She looks extremely beautiful. She has some really soft, like pastel, pretty, like whimsical kind of shades. You've got a mix of matte shimmers. You've even got glitter. I actually thought the quality of this palette, considering the low price, was really, really good. And I believe that in my review video, I did recommend the palette and I gave it a good review. However, I have many palettes now that have a very similar colour theme, and I think that the other palettes that I've got the same colour theme in, I prefer the quality. So for that reason, I am going to be saying bon voyage to this palette today, and she will be going to someone that I know will really appreciate her and have so much fun with her, because she really is a beautiful palette. And as you can see, I have barely used her. I believe I've only used her just the once to create one look. So yeah, she is going to be passed on. For you, I feel like the pressure's off now that I actually have one palette out of 5 that I am giving away. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so next we have the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe collab palette. This one is volume 2. It's the second palette that they released together. Well, not together, but the second like main palette. I know she released like that series of like 10 pan palettes that were really shitty and everyone hated them and she got absolutely slated for, but this was like the second bigger, like larger palette. So this is what she looks like. She's very warm toned, quite colourful, but then you do have a lot of these like very like natural shades. I was actually really disappointed with this palette. I thought that the mattes definitely exceeded the quality of the kind of metallics. The metallics were just terrible, like so bad. And it's a shame because I think there's some really, really beautiful shades within this palette. I love these kind of, you know, the cranberry, like the orangey red kind of shades and the purples, but I've got those shades in many, many, many other palettes and the quality is much better. So although, do you know what? I was going to be kind. I'm not. I don't like this palette. I don't like it. I don't reach for it. I am going to clean her up because she's a little bit dirty. I'm going to clean her up and I'm going to donate Jaclyn Hill. See you later, Jaclyn. Feck off. Feck off, Jaclyn. Okay, so next we have a palette by You Can Be, and this one is the Fruit Punch palette. So they did release a whole series of these palettes and this was definitely one of my favorites of the series. It's a colourful, bright, vibrant, playful palette. I was deeply impressed with the quality. I like the fact that this is a smaller, oh she's falling apart like she is, but oh well. I find that a lot of these like colourful palettes tend to come in like large sizes. They're just like epically big palettes and I find that very overwhelming, so I really like the fact that this one's quite small. I could take this on holiday with me. I just feel like it's perfect, so I'm going to be keeping this palette today. Okay, so next we have a 9-pan palette by Handaiyan. This one is simply called the Pink palette. So she's very kind of pastel-y, a very kind of soft palette. I don't think that I hated this palette, but I also don't really think I love the palette. So for that reason, I'm going to be donating her today. Oh, okay, so next we have another one of my favourite palettes of this kind of series by You Can Be. This is the My Honey palette. This one features some absolutely delicious warm shades. You've got the camel brown, you've got a metallic gold, metallic bronze, you've got this beautiful metallic kind of a graphite kind of colour, and then you've got this matte orange which just works so beautifully with all of the other beautiful warm matte shades. So I love this palette and I am definitely going to be keeping her because the quality is great, the shades are great. As a cohesive palette, you know, it's wonderful. You can just reach for it and you know instantly what look you want to create. There's no feeling of overwhelmness or stress trying to decide which shade to use. It just all works together beautifully. Are you going to create like a whole different, like, you know, portfolio of looks using this palette? Probably not, but I just think the looks that I've created with it have been so good. I cannot say goodbye just yet. Okay, so next we have a palette that I was sent and it's called the Hello 2000 palette. I've tried this fairly recently and I did not like it. And the reasons I don't like it is because I look at this palette and it just makes me feel like anxious because it's just not a cohesive palette. Like I don't look at this palette and think of a look to create. I kind of look at this palette and my mind just thinks, what the fuck do you want me to do with that? What is going on here? I just don't think it's very well thought out. I'm not a huge fan of the shades. I didn't think the quality was anything special. So for that reason, I am going to donate it because I think that probably for all the same reasons that I don't like the palette, someone else may love the palette. So yeah, she's going now, and I hope she doesn't hit her ass on the way out, honestly. Okay, so next we have the Belonging eyeshadow palette. So this one is another one by You Can Be. This is probably, I would say, other than my collaboration palette with You Can Be, this is my favourite You Can Be eyeshadow palette. And the reason for that is mainly down to the shades. This palette is full of cool tones. It's got a lot of like very intense, deep, dark, vampy shades. It's got a mix of matte shimmers. Just the whole palette just works so beautifully for every matte. You've got a complementary kind of shimmer and vice versa. I don't reach for this palette a whole lot, but I think part of the reason that I don't is just because I'm so overwhelmed with eyeshadow palettes. I think once I've done the declutter process and I've got rid of some palettes that I just don't use, maybe it'll help me to see the palettes that I love but that I've just ignored and not seen just because I can only see like a wall of palettes in front of me. Every so often I'll declutter the boys' toys for them, which by the way, it's so much easier to declutter things that you don't own, I've realised. So when the boys are at school, like it's so important, you've got to make sure that they're not around. Just get a black bin bag and the toys that are still in a good state I'll put up to the loft, and then I'll like, sometimes right, I've even re-gifted it to them at Christmas. They forgot because they never used the toy. They didn't even realise they still had it, so I'll just re-gift it to them. So then like, oh, that works out really well. Anyway, this palette's staying. She's staying and I'm hoping that I will use her more, and if I don't, she'll be going. But I love her, so I don't see why I wouldn't. Okay, so next we have an eyeshadow palette, and I've always been like super confused about who actually made this palette because I see that it is for sale on the You Can Be official store on Aliexpress, but then I remember that when I bought it, it was not from You Can Be, and I don't think You Can Be made this palette, but this is actually an extremely like beautifully like well thought out packaged palette. It's got this like little oh no, something has broken within the palette. Oh no, okay, it's just one of the shades has slightly broken, so I'm going to hold her up very carefully because I don't want to have to hoover again. We got rabbits a few weeks ago and all I do now is hoover. Hoover. I thought I hoovered a lot before we got the bunnies. I hoover about 3 times a day now, so I mean, it's well worth it. I love those bunnies. They're so cute. But warning, if you buy bunnies and you free roam them about your living room, you're going to be on a never-ending hoover train. Just, there's no amount of hoovering that can hoover up all of the hay. Okay, so anyway, this palette, right, when I first picked her up, I was like, I'm going to get rid of this palette because I never use her. But then when I kind of opened her up and looked at her beauty inside, I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's so sensational. Like, how could I possibly get rid of her? But now I'm looking at her again and thinking, well, when you never use her, you don't use her and you know how beautiful she is. Oh, this is a tough one for me, guys. I kind of want to be strict on myself and I want to say no, let's declutter her, but then I'm looking at her thinking, shall we give her one last chance? Give her one last chance, and if I'm not happy with the quality or the look, we shall get rid of her in the next declutter. But I think she is going to be an undecided for now. I'm going to try her, like I'll film a look with her and then we will decide. Okay, so she's reluctantly going back in the stain pile. I'm not doing very well. I thought I was going to be savage. Like, just because I'm so good at decluttering the boys' toys, I was thinking, Anwen, you got this. You're going to be like an inspiration to the world of makeup junkies on how decluttering should be done. You know what I mean? You're going to be unsentimental. You're going to be ruthless. You're just going to be like, yes, this one I don't use. Feck off over there. This one I love. You can stay. But this one, I never use you and the quality was shit. Feck right off. I thought they'd all be in the fecking off pile, but no, that's not the case. Anyway, we shall continue. Okay, so the next palette is by the Pretty Vulgar brand, and this is the Nightingale palette. Honey's got me this palette, and it was such a thoughtful gift because I didn't really know that Honeys could buy me an eyeshadow palette, honestly, but he did. And sometimes, like, he buys me makeup and it's terrible. And I think, why did you buy me that, Honeys? When was the last time you saw me in a shea pink lipstick? When was it, Honeys? When? Hey, girlfriend, how are you doing? I just... Porto's come over to see what all the kerfuffle is about. Hey, girl, what you been up to? You just been spreading hay everywhere. So this is what the palette looks like. She's very cool toned. She is literally like my perfect palette. So this has kind of taken over from the Ultimate Basics palette by Urban Decay that we saw at the beginning of the video. This has kind of taken over from that palette, being like my new everyday, like going to the office palette. So I am definitely going to keep her. She ain't going anywhere. She's beautiful. I am never getting rid of her. You would have to rip her out of my dead cold hands. She's beauts. And I do use her fairly regularly as well. So she can stay. I can feel something licking my bum. And all I can say is I really hope that that's one of the bunnies. Okay, so next we have my one and only Natasha Denona palette. So this is the mini retro palette. I have to admit, I was rather unimpressed with the size of this palette because she is tiny. Just to compare her to my face, like and I have quite a small face. This palette is like really, really small, but what she lacks in size, she makes up for in quality. So this features 2 mattes and 3 shimmers. I would definitely say if you are a cool tone eyeshadow fan, you would definitely love this palette. I only recently bought her, but I've used her so many times. The mattes are just so easy to blend. They blend themselves. The metallics, they just look sensational. Like, I can't even put it into words, but when you put these metallics on your lids, it's like they're kind of 3D. The way that they shimmer and kind of catch the light, it's like they're 3D, but they're not. They're like super smooth and creamy, but they just have this like, oh. This is a beautiful palette. Am I getting rid of it? No! Okay, so the last palette that we have to decide on its fate today is the Pastels palette by Beauty Bay. This was one that I recently tried and I have used a few times since trying it. So this features like neon pastel shades. So this is right up my street because my very favourite colours are pastels and I also love neons. So when I saw this palette, I was like, yes, I have to have it. And it's one of those palettes that you're definitely not going to be using it like every day. Well, maybe you will. And if you do, I want to be you. I feel like you would be leading a very, very exciting life, which I would love to lead. So but for me, I won't be using this every day and I don't. But just sometimes, you know, I just want to have a pop of like a neon green in a corner. I want to have some pastel pink on. Oh, sorry guys, the bunny just like knocked my camera over. But no, girlfriend, you can't go on my laptop. I know one day they're going to be on my work laptop and that's going to be a really, really awkward conversation to have with our IT manager at work. But yeah, you know, it's one of those palettes that I don't use every day, but I will definitely need in my life. So for those reasons above, I'm not getting rid of her. I'm not. Okay, so guys, we have finished the very first of the Jojo knocked the camera over again. Right, yes, so we have now completed the very first of our declutter videos. Did it go well? No. And I definitely think I need to be more ruthless, but maybe it was just the fact that these were the palettes that they were the ones that were closest to me at the time when I was kind of putting them in the bag. So maybe like when I delve deeper into like the depths of my makeup drawer, those are going to be the palettes that I do not use and they'll all be going. So yeah, I'm just going to put the unsuccess of this first video down to the fact that these are palettes that were nearest to me and most accessible. Meaning that maybe that I do use them all the time, but I basically have got rid of 4 palettes, right? And I'm keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm keeping 10. So the ratios are not great, but anyway, guys, I do feel good. I feel like these 4 palettes will hopefully just like make someone smile, will just make someone feel happy in a way that they cannot make me feel happy. The next video that I'll be putting up will, I don't know, do I just carry on with the eyeshadow declutters, or do I do the highlighters? I don't know if I think, do you know what? If you agree, let me know in the comments. But I think that I may move on to like the highlighters, the blushes, the concealers, the lip products, because I've got a lot less of those products. Eyeshadow palettes is the category of makeup that I have the most of. So just so it doesn't get boring, like, oh, here's Anwen again with another declutter of eyeshadow palette videos, which she'll get rid of about 3. So yeah, so next we'll probably move on to like something else. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go, but thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that I can maybe inspire you to look through your own collection and maybe get rid of some stuff in a way that I have shown that I am not able to today. Let me be the inspiration, but don't let me be your guide, because if I am your guide, you will not get rid of any of your makeup. So yes, do what I say, not what I do is the theme. So anyway, guys, I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!